Sandtray, Episode 17 on What Has My Attention podcast. You're probably wondering what Sandtray has to do with podcasting. Well, simply put, it's had my attention for a very long time. And since this podcast is about what has my attention, well, there you go. But it was being on Kim Shea's Pivot and Thrive podcast, that's episode 16, titled John Biethan and Stephanie Murphy, an extraordinary couple builds their future together, where in the conversation my partner Stephanie talked about Sandtray. Kim gave me permission to use a portion of her episode to drop in here so you could know what Sandtray is and how, as an art therapist, Stephanie uses it in her practice. And I really want to thank Kim and really appreciate it. And a note, there is a difference between Sandplay and Sandtray. In Sandplay, the therapist does not intervene with the client once the tray is created. Instead, the therapist keeps the focus on the unconscious of the client. And by contrast, the humanistic Sandtray therapist is actively involved in facilitating an experience of awareness and growth. This is from the Sandtray Therapy Institute. And you can visit the program notes for all the references mentioned in this episode. So Sandtray is a tool that allows a therapist to help their client tell a story. So if you really think about it, the best podcasts you hear are telling stories. That's why the length of a podcast doesn't matter. It's the content and the storytelling that does matter. For what follows, I've kept Kim's introduction to Stephanie and myself, and then asked Stephanie the question, what is Sandtray?
Hey everyone, welcome to Pivot and Thrive. It is Wednesday, March 10th, 2021, and I am very lucky today to be able to interview two people, wonderful friends of mine and a couple, John Biethan and Stephanie Murphy. John Biethan is the president and producer of Imagine Podcasting in Carlsbad, California, and we work together on a podcast called Alternative Health Tools. And Stephanie Murphy is an art therapist and art therapy supervisor in Mesa Vista Wellness in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
I mean, she has not been able to actually do what she really loves, which is Sandtray, which you should talk a little bit about.
Yeah, I'd like to know more about that.
Yeah, we all would. And, and I haven't experienced it. She also does soul collage, and it's hard for me to imagine you're just going to stop doing that. In fact, you've been able recently to be able to spend some time with some clients doing Sandtray. And after, when we talk at night, it's just like, after that experience, it's like you're back. You're a lot more present. Right? So this is how I want to be with her. It's like I want to be present with you. So yeah, what is this thing called Sandtray? I mean, what are you getting out of it,
Well, actually, it was developed by a woman named Dora Kolf. She worked with Carl Jung, and she created a way for children to use miniature figures to create a world. And she realized how important that was to a child's psyche. When we're kids, we all love water play, bathtub time. We love the sandbox. There is something very primal about that. And Sandtray is an actual tray filled with sand. I have an extensive collection of miniatures and figures, action figures, houses, trees, boats, anything you could imagine. And a client actually selects their miniatures and sets up basically what is a diorama in the tray. And Dora Kolf's practice was called Sandplay. It's very Jungian. It's nonverbal. The client comes in, they build their tray, and they leave. There is kind of an offshoot of Sandplay that is called Sandtray. It's very confusing to some people. Sandtray is what I practice primarily because in Sandtray we have dialogue about what's going on. We can talk about metaphor and symbology and have a conversation about what is happening for the client. It is a way to open a door to deep unconscious material. It's almost like building a dream in 3 dimensions right in front of you, where you can actually move the pieces around and handle them and be an experiential part of that dream. And Carl Jung always said, the language of the psyche is our dreams, and that language is imagery. It is not about words, but it's about an experience. And that's what Sandtray actually gives a client. It is very powerful work. I've had over 150 hours of training. There are a lot of people that, oh, I want to collect little figures and stick them in the sand, and we're going to do it. It is such a dynamic modality for the psyche that practitioners that have not been trained are at risk of opening up doors, like opening up the closet to let all the skeletons out, perhaps. And if they are not trained in how to hold that space or guide the client through whatever is emerging from their psyche, it can be dicey. I've certainly had personal experiences with clients doing Sandtray that I would never have expected them to have the kind of ahas or meltdowns or whatever their experience is. It's so amazing, and it's so magical, and it's so like, oh, I'm just going to stick things in the sand, and what's going to happen? You know, it's pretty powerful stuff.
That sounds really interesting. I'd never heard of it before I met you. It sounds really interesting, and I could see how it could be so valuable. Talking about moving forward with our careers and what do we want to do, I have contacted the California Counseling Board to find out what regulations are. What would it take to transfer my licensure from New Mexico to California? And California has, they are primarily licensed marriage and family therapy focus. So to become independently licensed in the state of California, I would have to go back to school, do some postgraduate work, take another whole exam. Like, how many exams do you have to take, you know? And so I'm looking at that. You know, would I want to do that again? I'm not sure. I would love to continue providing Sandtray as a modality for people. But really, to do it professionally and ethically, I need to be licensed as a therapist to do it in the way that it should be performed. So I'm kicking it around.
Okay, so now you know. And lastly, I want to again thank Kim, Shea, and of course Stephanie. And there are 3 others I want to thank. Dave Herndon, who taught me the value of first writing an outline before telling your story, and he can be heard on episode 6, titled Dave Herndon, How to Tell Your Story. And then there's Peggy Lebo, our True Voice Method voice coach at ImaginePodcasting.com, who guided me through her method, which has given me more confidence and brought out a voice to better express myself. And writing my solo episodes would have not been possible at all without the coaching from Kent Sanders at dailywriterlife.com. I discovered Kent's Daily Writer podcast months ago and jumped into his Daily Writer coaching program. So what's Sandtray got to do with podcasting? I think I already told you, but it's storytelling. And if you're doing solo episodes and want to clarify your thoughts, spend some time with Kent and visit Kent's links in his podcast. We have an upcoming episode with Kent in the upcoming weeks, and I've also scheduled some time with Barry Berman on the topic of leadership. Now, Barry's a business coach, and he has a business called Integritas Consulting. That's integritasconsulting.com, and we'll be talking about integrity. So until next time, consider what has your attention and is valuable and let go of the rest. Thanks for listening, and you can always get a hold of me at whathasmyattention.com. You can even leave me a voice message there. There's a little blue button you can tap on to leave feedback or even ask a question. If you want to find out more about why we're hired by people that keep putting off starting their podcast because it seems so darn complicated and expensive, and what they really want is to get their brand and message out there in a bigger way, head over to imaginepodcasting.com and schedule a free call with me. I'd love to talk with you.